The courtroom was packed, every bench filled, the air taut with tension that had been building for weeks. Sunlight filtered weakly through tall windows, landing across the polished wood of the judge's bench and the scuffed shoes of defendants and attorneys alike. The murmur of the gallery rose and fell like restless waves, punctuated by the sharp crack of the bailiff's gavel whenever it grew too loud. At the center of it all, the accused sat stiffly at the defense table, hands clenched into fists on his lap. His suit was worn, the collar frayed, but he held himself upright as though sheer will might hold back the weight of judgment pressing toward him. Across the aisle, the prosecutor stacked files, their crisp edges bristling with evidence. The judge adjusted her glasses and cleared her throat, ready to deliver the next pointed question. The trial had gripped the town. Some believed the man guilty beyond doubt. Others swore he was being sacrificed to politics. Families of victims sat in the front rows, eyes burning with grief and expectation. Reporters scribbled furiously, cameras outside flashing like lightning. Every word spoken in that chamber seemed destined for tomorrow's headlines. The judge leaned forward, voice steady but sharp. "And so, Mr. Callahan, are you prepared to admit?" The heavy doors creaked open. At first, no one turned. Courtrooms were places of interruption, late arrivals, whispered excuses, small distractions quickly silenced, but then footsteps echoed. Not hurried, not hesitant, steady. Each one a declaration. Heads turned, murmurs rose. The bailiff moved instinctively toward the aisle. A tall figure walked through the open doors, his coat plain, his face calm. But his bearing was unmistakable. Straight-backed, eyes fixed ahead, each step deliberate. The silence he carried with him spread quickly, dimming even the whispers. A veteran in the gallery gasped softly, "A tomb guard." The bailiff raised a hand. "Sir, this is a closed session," but the guard kept walking. Not defiant, not arrogant. Simply steady, as though the rules of time and space bent to his discipline. He passed between rows of stunned spectators, the scrape of benches the only sound as people shifted to let him through. The judge's gavel slammed. "Order! This is highly irregular." "Bailiff, remove." She stopped. The guard had reached the center of the courtroom. He turned, facing the bench, his silence heavier than the gavel's command. The bailiff froze, hand half extended. Even the attorneys stopped shuffling papers, their eyes drawn helplessly toward him. The judge adjusted her glasses again, more from nerves than need. "Who are you, and enter this chamber unannounced?" The guard finally spoke. His voice was low, steady, carrying through the chamber without strain. "I am one who stands watch where the forgotten rest." The words were strange in the clinical air of a courtroom, yet they landed with force. A hush spread through the gallery. The judge blinked, her sentence lost. The accused turned in his chair, confusion shadowing his face. The families in the front row leaned forward, uncertain whether this was intrusion or revelation. The guard's silence returned, deeper now, his presence immovable. He stood not like a witness or a protester, but like a sentinel, as though the entire room had become a memorial. For the first time since the trial began, the proceedings halted. The case, the arguments, the weight of evidence all suspended. The courtroom itself seemed to wait for whatever words would follow. Words that could make even a judge pause mid-sentence. The silence pressed against the walls like a tide. Every ear strained toward the figure at the center of the courtroom, waiting. The judge, her gavel still raised, lowered it slowly. She could not command this silence. It belonged to him. The guard lifted his eyes to meet hers. "I did not come to defy your court," he said, his voice calm, deliberate. "I came because truth has a way of being buried. And I cannot stand watch over graves while silence buries the living." Gasps rippled through the gallery. The accused leaned forward, his hands trembling against the table. The prosecutor frowned, clutching his notes, uncertain whether to object or listen. The judge cleared her throat, her voice softer now. "This court deals in facts and law, sir. What truth do you claim to bring here?" The guard reached into his coat. For a moment the bailiff tensed, but all he drew out was an envelope, its paper yellowed and edges worn. He held it with reverence, as if it were as fragile as the silence at the tomb. "This was written by Sergeant Matthew Callahan," the guard said, "a soldier who never returned from war. It is addressed to his younger brother, the man now standing accused before you." The accused's head snapped up, his lips parted, but no sound came. Tears welled in his eyes. The judge leaned forward, unsettled. "How did you come by this letter?" "I guard a place where forgotten belongings rest," the sentinel replied. "Sometimes families never claim them. Sometimes they're lost in boxes and archives. I found this one. And when I learned this trial was happening, when I heard this man's name, I knew silence was no longer honor, it was injustice." He opened the envelope carefully and began to read. His deep voice carried the faded ink into the present. "Dear Thomas, if you are reading this, then I did not return. You will hear many things about war and about me. Some will be true, others twisted. But I need you to remember this. You are not me. You are not bound to carry my battles. You are free to live, to stumble, to rise again. If ever the world turns against you, remind them you carry not my shadow, but my love." The guard's voice faltered only slightly before he continued. "Do not let anyone make you pay for my absence. Do not let guilt chain you. I chose my path, and I walked it with pride. Yours is to live in my stead, not in shame, but in hope." By the time he folded the letter, the courtroom was transformed. The accused Thomas Callahan had bowed his head onto the table, his shoulders heaving. The prosecutor's papers trembled in his hands. Even the families in the front row stared wide-eyed, tears slipping down faces hardened by grief. The judge's lips parted, but for a long moment, no words came. She set down her gavel with a soft click, staring at the guard. This was his brother's. The guard nodded. "Yes, his name is carved in stone among the fallen." His last words were for this man, not for judgment, but for freedom. The room seemed to breathe as one, a shudder of realization passing through it. The trial, once defined by evidence and accusation, now bore the weight of a voice pulled from the grave. Thomas lifted his head, his cheeks wet. "I never knew," he whispered. "All these years I thought I had failed him. I thought I lived in his shadow." The guard placed the folded letter on the defense table before him. "He did not want you to live in shadow. He wanted you to live in light." The judge pressed a hand to her forehead, fighting tears of her own. She looked around the room, the families, the lawyers, the press, all of them undone. At last she said, softly, "Sometimes justice is not in verdicts alone. Sometimes justice is in remembering." The gavel never struck again that day. Proceedings paused, not from law, but from humanity. People rose from their benches slowly, reverently, as though leaving a sanctuary. News spread swiftly. Headlines captured it. Tomb guard reads fallen soldier's letter in courtroom. The video went viral. Millions watched as a sentinel's voice stopped a judge mid-sentence and carried a dead soldier's words into the living world. Comment sections filled with stories of families who had lost letters, of siblings reconciled, of people remembering promises long buried. In the weeks that followed, students copied the letter into essays. Teachers read it aloud in classrooms. Veterans folded it into speeches. And Thomas Callahan, once defined by suspicion, was now seen first as a brother, one who had been carrying guilt he never should have borne. The guard returned to his post, silent again, as if nothing had changed. But those who stood before him at the tomb afterward swore they felt something new in the air, as if the silence itself now carried a voice. And the lesson endured. The law may weigh actions, but remembrance weighs hearts. Sometimes, to guard the truth means stepping out of silence, carrying words across decades, and reminding the world that love, not guilt, is the final verdict.